Welcome back, everybody, to the Boomsday Invitational. Hope you guys enjoyed that first series between Korea and Europe. Joining me on the desk is another one of my assistants, in Dr. Jinkaninki, who also has his PhD. What's up, Dr. J?
You know, nothing much. I really feel like a doctor now that I finally get to wear the lab coat. It's like, it was like my trademark, but they would never let me wear a lab coat. So I'm glad I finally got to do it now.
When you were casting in the past.
Exactly.
Okay, but when you're competing, you can wear whatever you want. Within reason.
I think it'd be too intimidating for my opponents if I were to wear a lab coat.
That's fair. That's fair. I think your opponents don't really see you as often, though, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. So, highly recommend. It's a good look. Coming next, we have North America versus Taiwan. Now, this is an interesting mix because we have, on the one hand, world champion Tom 60229 and Roger, one of the most accomplished players from Taiwan, dating from the very beginning of Hearthstone 2014, along with Tom. And Shaxi, the leading HCT point owner for 2018 so far for all of HG Pacific, on track to go to the World Championships guaranteed if he's able to keep up that pace.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive how, just stacked this Taiwan roster is. I'm kind of a little worried for America's hopes here.
And then you have America. You have, the mayor of Valuetown who, gives out 1-stars as freely as welfare, essentially, for the entire city of Hearthstone. Then you have Ali Straza, who's, definitely more of like that hybrid, kind of on the come up for being an influencer, but definitely more of a streamer first. And then Ant, who feels like he has to be like the representative of the competitive players from America, going to last year's World Championships in Amsterdam, and of course still charging head on. Here's the current standings of the points that matched up. You guys missed it. Korea defeated Europe by a score of 2-1. And I gotta say too that I feel like Korea not only won the series from the score standpoint, but also they brought some really weird decks versus Europe. Kind of brought a little bit more cutting edge. This is the good decks. Zoo Warlock, Maliko Stru. It's like, come on, man, you're playing like real decks, and your opponents are just playing like Pogo Hopper, Rogue, like Fatigue Rogue.
I will say though, I loved seeing that warrior, that odd warrior with the Dr. Boom Mad Genius. That was just. It's one of those decks that you don't really see too often because it's a very niche deck, and it has a very solid goal in targeting something. It targets aggro really well, so they hit it perfect when they hit the Zulok, and they just kind of stomped it.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the specific matchup that they're looking for with the odd warrior. But I mean, it's a good metagame call in general when you anticipate a lot of aggro. If your opponent's playing Mechathune decks, I think odd warrior isn't exactly what you're looking for unless you have ways to mess with that, and there's a few ways, but there's not many, easy ways to stop your opponent from comboing you because you don't exactly have the traditional win conditions yourself that you would like to do compared to the other warrior decks. So, coming up here, I anticipate Taiwan to perhaps bring a little bit more cutting-edge decks. But at the same time, I also think that America has something to prove, I know players like Trump and Ali always want to show people how good they are at Hearthstone because I think a lot of people underestimate them. And I think it is definitely the case when you see them compete. Trump has actually a very good resume for competitive Hearthstone, doing pretty well, getting top 4 at DreamHacks, winning tournaments. And Ali Straza, whenever she competes, she's also hanging in there, always kind of on the cusp of top 32, maybe even making a deeper run if she's able to win 1 or 2 more series. So, I think we all know how good Ant is. So I also maybe anticipate that Americas might also bring out the try-hard as well and try to bring the decks because they want to prove to it. Tom has nothing to prove. He already won the World Championship, been to another one in 2014. These guys may meme a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see, how kind of like, I guess you were saying, try-hardy they go, because I've seen like all of them do fairly well in tournaments. Like Ali Straza, I believe, took on Kalento at Seed Story Cup, and that was just very impressive showing from her, and that really shows that she can kind of keep up with all these. There's no second guessing it. Taiwan is very powerful with their roster right now.
All right, let's go ahead and talk to one of the team members from America. We have Ali Straza on the line. Ali, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good morning, guys.
Good morning to you as well. So did you watch the first series at all? Did you get a chance to catch it?
I did. I did watch some of the games. Yes. Very exciting stuff.
Well, do you think Korea bringing all these a little bit more wacky ideas, is that something that, you guys are doing? Or are you more of Team Europe and you're like, we're bringing the good decks because we want to crush the competition?
Yeah, our strategy was look at the best decks that we can make, and yes, we are going to try hard a little bit here. I'm sorry, guys. The memes won't be brought out, so.
Or is that all a mind game to catch
Or
the
is it a mind game? There you go.
Ali, talk to me about how the Boomsday Project's going for you so far. I saw you streaming a lot. Seems like everyone's having fun with it. What's your experience been like so far?
Honestly, I think this is the most fun I've ever had with an expansion before. I I don't know. I think it's a lot of fun. I've been playing a lot of Death Rattle Rogue. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I put Myra Rotspring in there. Mech Death Rattle Hunter. Just a bunch of stuff, and I think it's a really fantastic expansion. So I've been enjoying it quite a bit.
Very nice. Your check is in the mail, my friend. All right. Well, do you have any word? Let's say hypothetically Taiwan and the rest of the teams are watching. Do you have any words for your opponents? You know, should they be watching out for something, or are you just ready to show how good America once again can dominate the rest of the world?
Yeah, just be afraid and chat spam your Kokonas. Okay.
Oh no, man! Maybe not that part, but the first part she meant. All right, thank you, Allie, for joining us. Good luck in your games today.
Thank you.
All right, I promise there's more to us than.
I don't think I could have said it better myself.
The southern drawl to America. Is that what it's become? We just basically type Kokonas, and that's essentially what represents America. Perhaps, But centering in a little bit, they said that they brought the tryhard deck, and that doesn't surprise me, given that again, I feel like it's interesting. The more people like Jackie and Dane, they feel like they might have a chip on their shoulder. Like, sure, they'll bring a couple of weird, wacky cards, but they'll still play like competitive decks. Versus, we'll see if Taiwan does the same thing, and they too will also be bringing a warrior, but this time they have no druid. They have priest, warlock, and mage. And then no druid on America's side either. They have paladin, warlock, shaman, and warrior. Where is the druid? I thought druid was one of the top hyped classes.
I still think druid is one of the top hyped classes. I think maybe it was just more of that, just trying to go for that diversity role. Maybe even try and expect their opponents to bring druid. So maybe if they try and go for a strategy of trying to beat out that druid, and I think I wouldn't be surprised. That's a pretty aggressive lineup coming up from the Americas side. I believe that mid-range shaman's been getting very, very popular recently, especially with powerful cards like Thunderhead, the 4-mana 3/5 that summons 2 1/1 sparks with Rush, and I wouldn't be surprised that's an odd paladin we see.
That's right. And then over on the mages side, what kind of mage decks have you been seeing a lot pop up on ladder so far?
I've been seeing, for the most part, I believe it was Cranage who actually built the mage deck, and what it is it's kind of like a tempo freeze mage kind of hybrid, and it relies on Lunar Pocket Galaxy, which transforms all of your minions into one cost, and then when you play that, you get 1-mana Antonidas, 1-mana Malygos, and then next thing you know, your opponent's just dead.
That's right. I saw Savit streaming that.
Yes.
Actually, we were watching it during rehearsals on the big screen, and some of the decks just like wins out of nowhere. It's
crazy.
Okay, they played Luna Pocket Galaxy. I put them to 2 life. They have to specifically have Stargazer Luna and to draw the perfect cards, and it happens fairly often because everything in your deck is so cheap. And you have even the Cosmic Anomaly, the 4-mana 4/3 that gives you +2 spell damage. They don't need Malygos. They can just play that with some AoE removal or some damage burn, and then the game is swung and you can't win from that position. Mage is definitely a sleeper class. People feel like it might be towards the bottom of the totem pole, but I think a class can definitely have a lot of game against some of the top decks out there.
I think it's going to be very hard to build the initial mage list because there's so many different ways you can go for it. You can go for that big, heavy control version that we've seen in the past.
Right.
You can go for a tempo mage build with the new shooting star, the one that deals, I believe, 1 damage to each minion and its adjacent minions. There's a lot of powerful tools that the mage has access to, but it's going to be very hard to try and build it and put it together.
Yeah, agreed. Especially with, again, the rules for this Invitational is that you have to have 8 Boomsday cards into your deck list as a minimum. And of course, you have to bring 4 different classes. Whizbang is not allowed, and then you ban one prior to it. Now, something that speaks volumes to me, Dr. J, is that not only is Warrior being brought by 3 out of the 4 teams, but Warrior is also banned by Americas.
Yeah, Warrior's been given a lot of respect.
There's a lot of really good classes right now. And when people say Warrior is towards the bottom, supposedly, right, we have not figured anything out yet, but when people think that it's not as good as some of these other classes, but yet it's banned, it tells me one thing and one thing only, and that's that Team Americas is playing an aggressive lineup.
I would say so as well. I think another reason why Warrior is getting more and more popular is because a lot of times you see these aggressive decks. I think one of those popular decks you've probably seen on ladder is the Zulok with the new cards like Doubling Imp and all of those cards that are just very powerful. Warrior just kind of stomps on that sometimes,
Yes.
with the 4 armor hero power. It doesn't even have to be Odd Warrior. Just any warrior that has that constant removal for the Zulok's board is just very powerful against that. So if teams expected that to be brought just in spades, then might as well bring a warrior.
Yeah, I was theory crafting with Frozen, who got 2nd in the World Championship in 2017, and very avid control player and combo player. We were talking about ways we can make Toggle Warrior
Togwaggle Warrior.
Viable in some capacities. And so I was bringing over that shell that we thought that we theory crafted right before the expansion and trying to put in some new of the Boomsday cards. And I just kept winning, not necessarily because Togwaggle did anything, you know, but it was largely because that I just kept removing everything, you know? Like, my opponent just ran out of gas, and then I just stuck a threat like Elite Trailblazer or, you know, even King Togwaggle himself, and my opponent can't do anything. Granted, my deck, if it was, you know, if the game went long, I think they'd still beat me because I have really bad combos like, you know, Explore Ungoro, Jungle, Hemet, and then Mecha'thun. I was trying to destroy my own deck with like Explore Ungoro, Skulking Geyser, or some of these weird combos. But it was really funny to just watch Warrior steamroll all these aggro decks. So if you guys are suffering against a lot of those pressure-oriented tempo decks, definitely explore Warrior class a little.
I believe there was actually another Warrior class or Warrior deck that was posted, I believe, by Firebat, which was the Mecha'thun Warrior that also played Malygos.
Yes.
Did you see that one?
I did.
The whole
I actually
goal of it.
with it for
Did you really?
Yeah.
I believe the whole goal of it was to get the
time.
Boomsday ship, and you would summon the Mecha'thun, the Malygos, and it didn't even matter what else you summoned, and then you would Rage and Whirlwind and kill everything at the same time.
Right.
That way you'd kill him with the Mecha'thun. It's just crazy to see how many decks actually have Mecha'thun, and that Warrior, I mean, it seemed viable. It's like you said, sometimes you just get rid of everything in your opponent's deck. It doesn't matter what's in yours.
It's so funny because, yeah, like, part of the problem with that deck was sometimes you just had that awkward bridge where you had like 3 or 4 cards remaining, so you need to stall out. You're like, I have all the pieces. I have double Rage, Malygos, Mecha'thun, and the Boom Ship, but I don't even have my deck completed yet. All right, so let's go into game number 1. And it seems to be a Shaman versus a Mage, but because I see things like Arcane Dynamo and Menacing Nimbus and a Knife Juggler, that makes me think this is an even Shaman here, Dr. J.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see even Shaman. We've seen the Odd Warrior in the past. This even Shaman, you know, even Shaman was a very powerful deck in previous metas, just because, you know, it has that constant pressure with the totems, and then there's a lot of new even cost cards that give a lot of benefit. For instance, we're seeing one right now in the form of Thunderhead, just a very powerful card overall. I wouldn't even be surprised to see the new 0 mana deal 1 damage to all minions that overload you for a little bit.
Yeah, I too know the name of the card, but am waiting to see if you know it.
I too also know the name of the card, but I'm not going to budge, Nan.
Yeah. Let's move on. Trump has the Menacing Nimbus on 2 with the Earthen Might, and that's some powerful tempo. But you see the tempo mage that you were talking about, or some of the powerful spell damage boosts with Shooting Star and Celestial Emissary. And here's another card potentially too, Unexpected Results. Now, that card is a 4-mana spell that says whenever when you play this, summon 2 minions that get improved by spell damage, meaning that you can get 2 2-mana cards, or if you get +1 spell damage, you get 2 3-mana cost cards, and so on and so forth. The only problem that I see with, you know, the +2 spell damage that seems to be going on is that, you know, 4-mana minions tend to be a little bit lower on the power curve than you'd like it to be traditionally. So I like that Tom here is favoring a board clear as opposed to trying to rush out minions with the unexpected results.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real reason to rush out the minions, especially when they get value traded kind of pretty consistently. Also, though, you got to be careful with that card. You don't want to play that card and then coin. And it almost looked like Tom was looking at that play a little bit.
Maybe it was too late. Maybe he played the Celestial Emissary. He's like, oh no, I can't do this.
I can't commit now.
I think they're laughing. I think that was the case.
That's what it was.
I think Tom rushed it and he's like, yeah, I meant to Shooting Star. He's laughing so hard. That's exactly the case.
I think that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, if you coin before the unexpected results, you give spell damage to your coin, which means nothing happens. And we've seen this happen multiple times, whether it's at the pre-release with Alistraza or even on Disguised Toast stream.
It's kind of like when patches first came out and people would automatically end their turn.
Yes, without attacking. Or prep the coin in some really bad scenarios. Looks like you know, the elemental gain from Earthen Might was just a Magma Rager, which is not what you really want to see. So a couple of vanilla minions getting Rayman and Magma Rager, but you know, Trump and Team America still have some pretty good stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, not the most impactful 2-drops there, but it's still pretty strong. Even fitting in the hero power just to get rid of that 4-1, that's a little, I mean, sometimes minions can be annoying, especially when you trade up.
I mean, that was kind of like a miniature call to arms, if you ask me.
It really was.
Yeah, you just pull out a couple 2-drops with, you know, for 2 mana, clear the board a little bit with Knife Juggler. Very threatening in its own right, but with another Merc Spark Eel picked up, that is devastating.
Yeah, it really is. Being able to clear off that Knife Juggler, making sure none of those juggles come in, can even take the value trade with the other Merz of Archaeal and just go ahead and clean up that 3-1. It's looking really good for Trump on the America side here. I mean, that's just one thing that Even Shaman does so well. It gets the board and it just kind of keeps it. Can't really take the board from Even Shaman.
The only problem is that to fit their mana curve very efficiently with their hand, they can play Magma Ranger, which is just dies to your opponent's hero power, and you're -1 mana in the exchange.
But a lot of times, if you're forcing your opponent to hero power, sometimes you're happy with that. I mean, they don't really have the mana to dedicate to maybe another play that they would have loved to have done. So if you kind of force your opponent, and he's a Trump. Trump is getting so excited playing the Magma Ranger.
Against most decks, I would agree, but when your opponent plays Shooting Star, I feel like
that's fair.
You're really upset to see that.
And this is a very strong Shooting Star if Tom were to have had it.
Yeah, or even just Arcane Missiles. So over in Tom and Taiwan's play, they picked up Mana Worm, which allows them to effectively pick apart the board. They can hero power Frostbolt and have a little bit of board dominance, but starting from turn 6 onwards is where Even Shaman gets really scary. The aggressive Tempo Mage really needs these early turns to dominate the board and leverage cheap spells in order to push more damage, and then hopefully use things like Fireballs with their Aluneth to end the game. The only problem is that, Tom may be able to win the board eventually if he's able to utilize these Fireballs, but they're not going face.
Exactly. That's one thing that Tempo Mage struggles with a lot, is a lot of the times you really want to get that early board down as quickly as possible and rack up the damage there, and you just kind of end the game with the Fireballs and Frostbolts like you were mentioning. But when your opponent's at 30 health and you've just got 2 Fireballs just stranded in the hand, you really didn't get that damage in that you wanted to.
Look at the pickup for the Sea Giant as well. The Sea Giant copied itself because of the elemental reaction. The elementary reaction says that if you have played an elemental, draw a card, and if and you can also copy it, giving you a mimic pot effect. And Sea Giant stacks for itself, so it's a really powerful swing available to our American players if they're able to get a board state big enough for it to be the case. Right now, though, looks like they're going to struggle because the power of this hidden secret, whether it is explosive runes or counterspell or perhaps something else that they're thinking of.
I think most of them would be devastating here. I mean, if it wasn't for the secret, Trump would have just a very solid, easy play in playing out the Thunderhead, then zapping a minion and using the Sparks to just kind of rush in to clean it up. But now with both of them kind of at Tom's disposal, if it was counterspell or the explosive runes, that kind of play just goes out the window. So Trump just has to find kind of like a hybrid line to try and, maybe stall out one more turn and then proceed to make that play on the following turn.
And explosive runes doesn't kill the Sea Giant, but damages it pretty significantly. And this is a really good Shooting Star setup again. This is really fearsome. And then it just shows you the power of the secret. Does Trump want to utilize the Zap to eliminate some of that damage now on the Mana Worm?
I almost feel like you have to. That's a lot of damage. I feel like Trump's in the driver's seat right now, and no matter, as long as he just makes sure that he doesn't take that damage consistently, he probably wins this game. And he's got so much threats in his hand. He's got so much value. There's no real reason just to take the 5, potentially more damage from a Mana Worm, because Mana Worm's pretty scary. Yeah,
you lose the synergy from the Thunderhead, but surviving is really important. Look, you have so many late game scenarios. You have another Sea Giant. You have Gen Greenmane. You have Arcane Dynamo to pick up more spells and late game scenarios like Bloodlust to finish the game, or perhaps the Stormbringer.
The Stargazer Luna, though.
Yeah,
that is an impressive card.
It's a very impressive card, specifically because Tom can use it even right now. He can use it to Fireball. The only problem is that there's not very clean Fireball targets.
Yeah, you kind of force yourself to Fireball the Sea Giant. So I think what Tom wants to try and do here is try and find a way to maybe stick it this turn, which is going to be kind of difficult to do. For the most part, there is, on Trump's side, he could have Fire Elemental, he could have Hex. There's a lot of answers potentially for the Stargazer Luna. But if Tom can actually stick this Stargazer, it could be just the swing he really needs to get back into this game. Because the way Stargazer works is you play the rightmost card in your hand, you just keep drawing. It's kind of like Edison Auctioneer. Looks like Tom's just going to go for it here, and I don't blame him.
Yeah, I mean, you can train to the 1/1 for the Fire Elemental. Of explosive runes. I mean, as long as he gets closer to Aluneth, that'll be the key. The nice thing too is that with the Hex, it shuts off your opponent's ability to develop big. And Even Shaman is fairly heavy on the late game costed cards compared to some other of those even decks that you might see. Even even Paladin, for example, was much more leaner. Like they tried to have a lot of 2-drops for cards
Yes.
in the past. But you know, even Shaman can run into hand space issues where it's just like they have so many cards they can't play enough mana cards because 6 is a really awkward mana cost.
All right, here we're gonna see the Celestial Emissary plus the unexpected results, and that's 2 Chill Wind Yetis. Pretty powerful.
Yeah, but it does make Sea Giant cheaper though.
That is true. I don't think Tom's too worried about that though, because even if Sea Giant comes down, you know, it's not really doing anything. There's still the Hex in the way, the Frog in the way to try and soak up some damage. And we can see this is one of those things that just gets a lot of. It becomes awkward for the Even Shaman because they want to experiment with all these new even cost cards, like the Thunderhead, but they don't really do anything for you unless you can combo them with another card. So right now you have Trump, who obviously has a very powerful hand, but right now he's got no answer for this board state that Tom's presented.
Yeah, and he also has one. If he could have one more mana to squeeze everything like the Arcane Dynamo, that'd be great, because Arcane Dynamo is a battle cry that lets you discover a spell that costs 5 or more. So, you know, there'd be a really good opportunity to get Volcano right now. I think that's 50% chance based off of the 6 spells that are available. If he's able to get Volcano, he can clear the board, but instead now he's kind of at the mercy of the mage not having insane damage. Ooh, a second secret pickup though. I don't think that was what you know, the mage in Taiwan was looking for.
Yeah, that's not really what Tom was looking for. Tom was kind of looking for, you know, either Primordial Glyph to try and find some more draw to keep going through, the Alunith pickup that we were talking about earlier. It's be interesting to see whether Tom decides to keep playing for the board state, as he's seen Trump make this very awkward play of just playing minions and hoping something sticks, right? Something sticks to try and allow him to. Or if he just tries to, you know, push it all face, say, you know what, you can make the trades. I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of both. The Primal Fin totems aren't really that threatening. They don't really do much, and you know there's no Bloodlust in the list, of course, unless the Arcane Dynamo actually finds it.
That is the threat of the Arcane Dynamo. The Dynamo will force it'll force you to play around those kinds of things where you have to start clearing a lot more. But this is a lot of damage to turn down. This is what, 15 damage total with 2. Yeah, exactly. So it is tough to try and just only trade when you realize you can deal half your points.
But Tom might have just saw that play coming out from Trump and saying, you know, that was a very weak play. Yeah, just kind of played minions. If I just clear this board up, I don't think Trump has an answer. And he's got a correct read on that. Unless this Arcane Dynamo can find something. I mean, the Arcane Dynamo can actually find the new 7-mana Shaman legendary spell.
Yeah, the Stormbringer.
Stormbringer, that's what I thought it was. And Stormbringer upgrades all of your minions into legendary versions.
The only problem with that is both secrets have been played.
Yeah.
So when 2 secrets are played against this mage deck, it usually is the case that it's explosive runes and counter spell. Sometimes you might see an offbeat thing like a spellbender or mirror entity or something else a little bit wonky, but for the most part it tends to be a minion based one and a spell based one, which means Arcane Dynamo feels useless until you pick up another spell to come.
You actually see there Trump opt for the 3/4 body, and that's just trying to make sure that he can test. It looks like he's actually going for the Gengrame and just going to go ahead and hold off on that Arcane Dynamo. I kind of like this, just wants to make sure he has as much pressure on the board as possible, because even if he gets the Arcane Dynamo, let's say he whiffs on the spell, first of all, he can't even cast it, because he knows that counterspell on the other side. But even if he were to whiff on the spell and say it's not counterspell, you would rather have the 6/5 body on the board rather than the 3/4, so I think that's good recognition. Here we see the issue with Tempo Mage of, you know, you played all your cards, you fought for board, but your opponent's got 27 health.
Yeah, but it's been a board control game, and now we'll see whether or not Trump can pick up something big here. Gets Fire Plume Phoenix, and a lot of those even shamans were transitioning more towards an elemental package because of Kalamos, the Primal Lord, which allows you to choose an assortment of enchantments to destroy your opponent's board or summon your own. Not a bad pickup here in this spot. We'll see. Let's first find out what he picks up off of the Arcane Dynamo. Looks like it was Bloodlust, Volcano,
and Eureka. And Eureka is the new 6-mana spell that allows you to summon a minion from your hand. I believe it's a random minion from your hand. A lot of times, I actually believe I've seen a bunch of like Malygos Shaman lists running around where you try and cheese out the Malygos with Eureka and try and put as much spell damage on as possible.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's that shooting star we've been talking about the whole series. That would have been really good earlier on.
Yeah, just a little bit late for for Trump, of course, trying to push for the lethal damage with Bloodlust. If he picks up another spell, like Zap,
Oh, there's another spell.
Here we go. America on the board. Activating the counterspell first for the Bloodlust, and that is why Arcane Dynamo has seen play for exactly 12 damage.
Is that the only reason it saw play was for that exact 12 damage?
No, it just shows you that you have that finisher with the Even Shaman.
It allows you to do things you typically wouldn't be allowed to, right? It gave the Bloodlust that typically the Even Shaman isn't allowed. It's kind of like how Odd Paladin would run Stonehill Defender in order to find Sunkeeper Tarim, because it's not something you expect. You don't really play around it until you've seen, obviously, the Stonehill Defender come down, and then you go, oh, wait, what if he has Sunkeeper Tarim?
Or Tyrion, or some of these other really annoying cards that Paladin can push out here. And, a really big win here for Team America, because, you look at the Tempo Mage, like, man, that's a really scary deck, but they also took down Tom. So, Tom,
took down the world
he's
champion.
Out of there, man. He can't talk to Roger and Chaxi, and, of course, I do wonder what would happen if he did end up pushing out that unexpected results a little bit earlier, maybe perhaps the sequencing. But it's good to know that these players are taking it in stride if that ends up being the case. We'll never know.
Yeah, it's when you work with these new cards, sometimes you let little things like that slip.
Yeah.
Just like little ordering things. I've seen a couple people mess up the Mechathune Priest.
Yes, and Taiwan is bringing Priest. I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
exactly.
I have no clue who I'd be talking about.
I am an astute player such as myself would never mess up Mechathune sequencing against Disguised Toast.
That never happened.
That never happened. Nor will it ever happen again.
Again? What are you trying to say here, Dan?
Just saying that it won't happen.
Again.
And it never will happen again.
It's just something you really don't think about when you're playing out these cards. I've seen a couple.
For people who don't know, assuming we do end up seeing the deck, but let's say we don't, the Mechathune sequencing does matter. You want to play Coffin Crasher before you're taking Abominations.
Yeah, so the way that works
Dr.
is
J did not.
Yeah, I didn't. The way that works is you play the new what is the card?
Reckless Experimenter.
Reckless
it's a 5-mana
Experimenter
3/6 that destroys your death routes at the end of your turn.
So you play that one first, then you play Coffin Crasher, you then proceed to play 2 Ticking Abominations, and the way the ordering goes, it will pull Mechathune out, and then it will clear your full board, and then you will win the game.
Yes. Or you can have a
or you can have a 10-5. Yeah.
You can have a free 10-10 that's cheated out. That's another way to look at it. So yeah, Priest is on the table for Taiwan. I want to see what kind of Priest it is. It seems like most Priests have some crazy combos. But first, we'll go to Warlock. And Roger's going to be piloting that. Oh, I see a Void Lord and a Ziliax. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but it makes me feel like Cube Warlock of some capacity might be on the table here.
Could be Cube Lock. Could just be like a mech control Warlock. Ziliax is overall just a very powerful card in and of itself. I've actually seen a couple lists play it, but then just not have mech synergy. They just play it for the overall just raw body and stats that it provides. It's a very powerful card. We see from Alex Strauss's end, that's that Odd Paladin we were talking about with the mech synergy. It's a pretty powerful deck from what I've seen so far.
Even Shaman, Odd Paladin. Team America is taking no prisoners.
They wanted this one. Oh, is it what I think it is?
It might be. Blood Bloom has been a card that people have been exploring with the idea of combining with Cataclysm to do some really crazy and janky setups. Most notably with Mechathune. You can discount the Mechathune by using Galvanizer, which reduces the cost of Mechathune 1.
It is!
Oh, Taiwan. I am so proud to be Taiwanese right now. I'm not joking. I am Taiwanese.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm American. Yeah. I'm proud to be American. We're
I
on
didn't
the
know
scoreboard.
that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, that's just a really kind of unique and cool combo that you can do, and that's the way we've seen a lot of Mechathune decks just across the board.
So janky.
It's so crazy.
The idea is you discount Mechathune with Galvanizer, so you put it to 8 or maybe 9 because you have the coin. Then you draw your entire deck, play Blood Bloom and Cataclysm, destroy all your minions on the board, and destroy your discard your entire hand, which means Mechathune effectively is satisfied. The only problem is you're going up against one of the fastest decks in the metagame.
Exactly.
However, Warlock is a deck well equipped to deal with it with Defile, Hellfire, and many other removal tools, whichever they choose to put in the deck. The interesting thing is that with cards like Void Lord, it does end up leaving minions on the board because of the Death Rattle effect. So, you do have to make sure that everything is dead before Mechathune does.
Yeah, at least with Cataclysm, it kind of helps because it kills everything off at the same time. So it's not that much of an issue. The biggest issue that Roger's going to have is just like you were saying, staying alive. You know, Warlock does have access to a lot of AoE, but eventually it's going to come down to the point where Roger just has an awkward hand that doesn't have the AoE, and he just has cards like Blood Bloom and Mechathune and doesn't really do much. As I can see right now, I don't think he's running out of AoE for quite some time.
Yeah, Lord Godfrey, one of the most powerful legendaries just in Hearthstone, period.
Yeah.
Just pretty much kills the entire board by dealing 2 damage to all minions and repeating it if it killed a minion. And then looking at the Odd Paladin side, this could be one of its toughest matchups. You know, they still don't know what kind of Warlock it is.
No, they've only seen, you know, just the powerful cards Warlock.
I don't think that changes their game plan necessarily, because against almost every Warlock, it's still fairly straightforward as the Odd Paladin, build a big board and try to pressure them out of the game. But one thing's for sure, with seeing Plated Beetle, they know it's some kind of slow variant. It's all about whether or not they can peg the Mechathune, which, you know, I can't tell. Like you said, there are some control Warlocks out there that play Gnome Feratu and Rin the First Disciple, and they just play more removal tools with some of the expansion like Spirit Bomb. It's really interesting to see this Mechathune list.
Yeah, there's also another card that's been finding its way into these Warlocks. I believe it's the Demonic Project. Demonic Project. I was going to say Purge. I don't know why. Demonic Project. And the reason that's actually seeing play is because it's actually one of the ways to counter Mechathune. You wait for your opponent when you know that they only have 1 to 2 cards left in their hand, or when they're trying to finally assemble that really awesome Mechathune combo, and then you kind of just put a straight stop to it by turning Mechathune into a Voidwalker, a Flame Imp, any kind of demon.
Galen Adventure is fantastic board stall against Odd Paladin. Even though they go wide on the board, it should answer most of their hero powers. The only problem is the threat of things like level up. So this ends up potentially being a spot here. But they have a Defile and a Lord Godfrey to fall back upon. So they're very confident that they can deal with any board state, regardless of how things shape up, pending on the trades on the board. Ooh, a loss in the jungle. So, you know, you kind of look at the Warlock, and it's very clear that they're stalling for time. You have a way to press in right now here, Dr. J, with loss in the jungle and level up. Is that too aggressive, you feel?
I think it's a bit too aggressive. I'm kind of looking at the raid leader right now. One thing that Paladin wants to aim to do is try and force out awkward turns from Warlock where they can't necessarily develop and clear. So they want them to clear and then pass. And then after that, you can kind of maybe equip a Vine Cleaver, get some hero powers going, get the Lost in the Jungle going, level it up. So right now, if you go ahead and commit to a level up and there's a board clear, you're almost out of your best resource right now. Whereas raid leader, it's not typically the strongest card in this matchup, so you can actually full clear with the raid leader and even push 3 from the Quarter Creeper if you choose to do so. So I would like to maybe see that consideration, but there's also Quangomancer, which is a very awkward card at times to get rid of from the Odd Paladin's hand. So this is a pretty powerful play as well.
And trades are trying to play around Defile. So that makes the most sense here. It seems like America is trying, there's the Cataclysm. America is trying to make it as awkward, like you said, for their opponents by putting as much pressure onto the board without extending into traditional removal tools.
Yeah, you have to find that balance of extending onto the board, but then making it threatening enough that it demands a removal. And I think this was one of those board states, but thankfully for Roger, he actually has access to that Possessed Lackey, which is just going to, I'm assuming, only pull out Void Lord. I don't know if there's any other demons in the list.
Yes.
But I would assume, you know, just 2 Void Lords are probably the only demons that they have, just to kind of guarantee that Void Lord comes on as quickly as possible.
This is 14 damage coming on the other side. It's very scary.
It is, but you know what else is very scary? A Void Lord.
it is scary, but one of the things that I'm looking at is you won't have the health to cast Blood Bloom. Cataclysm if you're at, you know, less than 4.
That is true. I mean, maybe, you know, in Roger's mind, he doesn't actually need that combo to kind of win this game, kind of just like clear off all the threats. But this is one of those versions of Warlock that you kind of look at it and you say, can you afford to just clear off everything? Eventually, you're going to have those awkward cards of Cataclysm, Blood Bloom, and Mechathune, where you might just have to coin out a Mechathune just to push 10 damage face.
True. Mechathune is, you know, a giant minion that might be difficult to deal with. So you might win just simply by attacking twice. Like that. They are not afraid of any Iron Beak Owl shenanigans. If you have it, you have it. They need to stick to their win condition.
It's very hard to fit niche cards like that in the deck list, like Iron Beak Owl, especially because you're so tight on the room. You have so many powerful cards, especially with even more powerful cards like Giggling Inventor.
And restrictions to at least include 8 Boomsday.
Exactly.
Still though, you can't always play around everything. So I definitely respect the play here from Taiwan, and it's kind of like what you're saying, playing it slow.
Oh, there's the Galvanizer.
They're pretty close. I mean, they still have the coin, so Galvanizer means that they effectively have every piece they need. With
the issue though is they have to get through their entire deck.
Yes. Oh, and
that's going to take quite a while.
And the life necessary.
Yeah, that as well. There's a lot of holes in this plan, but it's coming together.
Well, armor count does affect it, so for now, it looks like everything is okay-ish.
Just got to get through the rest of the 15 cards in deck.
Yeah. Defile also kills your own Void Lord in this spot, too, which is awkward to say the least.
Yeah, it's really hard to commit to any of these because you can't really play any of these AoEs because you clear off your own board and then the Vine Cleaver just kind of connects through. So it's very difficult to see what the play is here from Roger. Could opt to try and gain some healing with maybe one of these Spellstones. But if you do that, you really don't get that maximum value. And I do like the life taps. Keep trying to find, especially because you're virtually safe behind this wall unless there is some kind of silence or crazy Woodruff return. So I definitely like the play here.
Yeah, the Stonehill Defender ticket was pretty clutch. Ooh, gets the Lich King as well, which could give some really important cards to either clear the board, because you're really happy to see Doom Pact. You're really happy to see Army of the Dead to just get through your deck faster. Even if they
Army
don't
of
do
the Dead
anything
seems
much.
really powerful, especially when you can... Oh, I will say, though, actually, now that I think about it, Army of the Dead can be a liability, because what if you pull out the other Galvanizer?
You have coin.
What would Uther
That is true. What if you didn't have coin, Dan?
Well, then you wouldn't play Army of the Dead until you had it. But Doom Pact also very powerful too against Odd Pal, and you destroy like half your deck essentially because you kill off like 7 to 10 cards.
Yeah, the one time you're happy to mill cards from your deck.
Dude, I've seen people get so tunneled into the Mecha'thun win condition of having no cards in your deck that they play Keening Banshee, which is a 4-mana 5/5.
I remember you telling me about that, yeah.
That says anytime you play a card, you discard 3 cards from the top of your deck. And I'm like, why? Why? And they're like, well, I have Mecha'thun in my hands. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, what if you discard like your naturalizes and stuff? Like, you might just lose. You have no way to actually activate. They're like, it's all good. I'm like,
you never get rid of those cards.
like, all right, man,
you never burn the Shutterwalk off the top.
reporting for duty?
Look, those players that are doing it are better than me, so I don't trust them. And it is getting dicey in here. Yeah, let's bring in the big guns. Lord
Might as well. You have to clear the board.
Oh yeah. Dual wielding.
Oh, that's just so risky. Because you clear the board, and then the most you can do is tempo out the Galvanizer, and then just you're dead to Leroy.
Dead to Leroy. You're dead to any ways to add damage to a single charger or some capacity. Where, again, we don't know exactly what the general themes. We wanted to, be surprised with you guys. Oh, Baku is one of the weirdest and most awkward draws in this position. Because your opponent has so many removal tools, so Baku could just end up eating your entire turn when you'd rather go wide onto the board. And they do have Champion's Maul, which is a way to extend really fast. In fact, I feel like they can get almost a full board this
What
turn.
would Uther do?
Yeah, I think they go for that as well. I think dedicating the mana to Baku is just kind of, whenever you play Baku in an odd deck, you kind of know you're losing at that point.
Yes.
So I think it's more important to go as wide as possible on the board, especially when you've seen Hellfire, Defile, or Godfrey. You've basically seen all of the removal at this point. There's just a couple more, and even if they Hellfire, they can't.
They kill.
They would die.
Oof.
Ooh.
Kind of talking about that exact thing, but Roger and crew can gain a little bit of life here with the Kobold and the Spellstones. Gain 5 each. It's not bad.
It's not bad, but it still feels so bad to play Spellstone Now that's a draw.
Wow.
That's a draw.
The second Voidlord. And that, my friends, is why we draw first. When you have the opportunity to give yourself the flexibility to adapt.
Always make sure to draw first, kids.
One life. Was there any opportunity for them to squeeze out a little bit more damage? Yes, there was. They took some overtrades purposely to try to make it awkward. I mean, granted, maybe they wouldn't be able to get as much damage in if their board got cleared so easily, but it's just, you know, something to consider. 1 damage.
It's that fine balance of trying to find and squeeze out as much damage as possible. After games like this, you kind of sit there and you reflect and you say, where was that 1 damage? Where was that 2, that 3?
Yeah.
Just that little bit of damage that could have stepped it over the line.
Right. And then you start realizing it was everywhere. You're like, oh, God, I traded
It was
way
turn
too
1
much.
when I didn't swing with the dagger.
Yeah, it's like when you
Reporting for
dude, I
duty.
can't tell you how many I've been playing a lot of Hunter, and Hunter, in my opinion, is a very underrated class as well right now, because I think just people haven't found the proper deck list to optimize their curve and power. But it's like, man, I just didn't swing with this extra candle shot charge, and they ended up overriding it later with like Eagle Horn Bow, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed that 1 damage because I didn't swing turn 1. I'm like, what is this?
What is life coming to? And that's just what separates.
Oh, 2 Voidlords can come back now.
Can even opt just to trade off as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. In fact, he wants to take some bad trades like the 1/1s into the,
Yeah.
the 2/2s just so he can get more demons and get that life back too.
Roger just wants to snap play this as quickly as possible.
Right. They just want to, you know, I think maybe Shaq's like, hold on, let's think.
Yeah, well, everyone
Let's
calm down.
But, you know, you don't want to overreact based on the top deck because sometimes you end up sabotaging yourself. But, you know, if I'm Roger, definitely. No, see, now you have his board space for his 2 attacks. Or you know what? He just
I
wants
think he's just pushing the damage. Why not?
Yeah.
Probably sets up lethal.
Shadow.
That should be get the Void Lords out.
Yeah, I was thinking about, like, you know, trying to. Oh, he gets double Void Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, you know, you want to try to maximize your chances for the double Void Lord. Oh, Void Ripper picked up, and that's usually a great tool against some of these high health, low attack targets. But useless in this position, and Taiwan strikes back with their Mechathune Control Warlock. And hey, you know, another way to look at it is that it's Control Warlock without Rin. Now imagine you take out Rin the First Disciple, which helps you essentially accelerate your win condition for fatigue. But instead of playing that 1 card, you put in 8 really awkward cards. And you fulfill the Boomsday rule for your condition. So you're playing Control Warlock, you put in 8 awkward Boomsday cards to try to create another win condition similar to that, and you get a lot of karma points because, you know, you didn't bring the Malyghost Druid and the Hot Paladin.
Yeah, you're not Europe.
Yeah, you're not Europe or America, who apparently
You're having fun.
are fighting for, you know, non-existent internet points. But instead, you get to win in style, which I think is the most rewarding thing in Hearthstone possible.
I believe it was Toast told me one time I was competing in a tournament with Toast, and Toast looked at me and I said, your lineup is crazy. He goes, if you didn't win with a lineup like this, did you really win? Did you really win?
That's right. I think so. I think if you're able to win, but also do it in a way that's different from other people, it just adds to that prestige. We talked about Jackie Chan, for example. Jackie Chan, you saw that trophy in the background of his webcam. It was from Game Goon. And
I was actually there with him.
Yeah, and I mistakenly said it was C-Story Cup, but he also brought a very weird decked lineup. We got second at C-Story Cup, and that's just something that Jackie's known for. But when he won, you know, Game Goon with some really off-the-wall wacky decks, he got players like Colento to tweet out, Jackie won with such a weird and awkward, interesting lineup. Mad respect for that. I'm paraphrasing because obviously Colento doesn't use urban slang in order to communicate his ideas on Twitter through 280 characters. But, you know, it was just like a lot of the high-level, like, some of the most respected players out there were just like, dude, that was amazing. I can't believe you won with such a weird lineup when everyone else is playing brutally efficient at tryhard tier 1 decks.
I think it was also at a point in the meta where the meta had become stale. So
yeah,
people were like,
end of an expansion.
Yeah, people were like, you know what? There's no more innovation. Everything's been discovered. And Jackie said, hold up.
Yeah,
I've got this discard warlock for you. You're gonna love.
So weird, but you know, I got nothing but respect for those guys, and I think Taiwan being able to do exactly that is really cool. But it's not over yet. We still have to play a 3rd game, and I'm glad that it's going to Game 3 for this best of 3 because we did promise that no matter what, we'll play Game 3, even if it's 2-0 in favor of one team. But you know, you want the drama, so it's 1-1.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the final deck remaining, and we have to see, I think, either the Priest come out here. And I want to see what the Priest is going to do.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see if it's that that topsy-turvy Priest we've been seeing a lot of with the test subject, where you have this crazy, insane turn, and you basically copy the test subject over and over. And, I mean, there's still a possibility for it.
It looks like it might just be a traditional Inner Fire and Divine Spirit combo Priest, because you don't need Inner Fire for that test subject combo, because you just use Topsy-Turvy to flip your high health minions into attack.
And that's one deck that surprisingly has been going pretty strong, is just with the inclusion of things like Topsy-Turvy. It gives you just more ways to, you know, kind of flip that make it a little bit easier. You see, I think I was talking to Ant. One of Ant's favorite decks is Odd Paladin.
Yeah, I think Odd Paladin gets a pretty bad rap because I think most people who lose to it get steamrolled by just like its incredible efficiency by hero powering a lot. But part of what makes Odd Paladin a very interesting deck from my perspective is how dynamic it can be. Yes, it's considered to be generally an aggro or a fast deck, but it also can play slow control or even fatigue. Like, I've seen Odd Paladins that go all the way to literally the 30th card against some of these slower decks and be able to go toe-to-toe because they hero power and maximize their efficiency, don't swing unless they need to, get every single ounce of value. And so it's a very fluid deck, which we don't see too often. I feel like a lot of decks these days are so good at one thing that they if you beat them at that one thing, then you win. But you know, for example, like, you know, Taunt Druid is really good at like the Hadronox thing, but if you take Hadronox away, they lose oftentimes, right? Because they can't summon back a big board. Or if they play Shudderwalk Shaman, you kill the Shudderwalk through like a Death Grip or you mill them, they can't really win as easily. Odd Paladin feels like it's so fluid and dynamic that even if you like clear its board 5 times in a game, it can still win. Compared to other aggro decks like Odd Rogue, you do the same thing. They can't.
It's also very skill intensive in the early games, understanding coin management and then also understanding when you kind of want to fit your hero powers in. It's very difficult to do that. When I first started playing the deck and I wasn't as experienced with it, I just kept losing these matchups where I was like, I should be winning this. Like, why am I not winning this?
Right.
And I would sit in calls with players and they would tell me, you know, you're doing this wrong, you should be doing this, you should make sure to fit in the hero power every turn, maybe use the coin earlier on. And then once I started realizing how powerful the deck was, it just kind of showed me how skill intensive, especially in the early games, that this deck can be.
Exactly. I think Odd Paladin really punishes you for having bad foundation. If you utilize your early mana crystals improperly, like say you're not coining out 2 1-mana minions because you're getting greedy with it, or say you overextend and you're playing moves here, guess what? You might like lose right there, like because you stopped your momentum. And look at this interesting play, and coining out the Void Ripper early on to stop the Motion Cleric. I was kind of anticipating maybe Champion's Maul, perhaps, because it sets up a weapon, but instead he favors having this early 3/3 to answer anything on the board. And then Shaxi has an unpowered Mauler, which is only attack if you cast a spell this turn, and it seems to be in theme of what we call a Miracle Priest. With Lyra, a bunch of cheap spells, and Radiant Elemental, you essentially can create your own win conditions at the mercy of the glory of the sun. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this game ends up panning out, particularly because, you know, I don't know too much about Shaxi outside that he's a really good player that gets a lot of points and high ladder finishes.
It's been impressive to see. And just going back to that like simple play of Void Ripper versus Champion's Maul, right? You sit there and you think both of them do a very similar thing.
Right.
But Ant went for the Void Ripper because a lot of times you want to have that minion on the board so it's a little bit stronger into a Wild Pyromancer, because if your opponent went coin Wild Pyromancer, or went, I'm sorry, Wild Pyromancer Power Word Shield, it would have cleared off the 1/1s and you would have had essentially no way to answer that Pyromancer. Whereas if you couldn't the Void Ripper, they can't go for that play, maybe their play's a little bit more awkward, and they can't really tempo out that Pyromancer the way they would want to.
Yeah, there's a lot of choices. Like, do we even want to play the Pyromancer in this spot? My opponent already used a coin, and Odd Paladin's weakest turn is turn 4 because they either play a couple of 1-mana minions and hero power, or they play a 3-mana minion, which, you know, there's not a lot of good 3-mana minions in Odd Paladin, to be quite honest.
Yes.
There's just, you know, it's like there's like Raid
really
Leader
awkward.
And like Stonehill Defender at best, you know. So, you know, exactly. Shaxi holds on. He says, I'd rather just have an additional card to see if I can combo, or, you know, maybe even kill off this 3/1. And Ant has another opportunity to flip. You know, Void Ripper ends up being one of the better 3-mana cards for Odd Paladin. Largely because for 3 mana, you still even just rather hero power a lot with this deck.
You really, hero powering as many turns as possible is one of the best ways to play this deck. Even if you think playing say, a 3-mana card and a 1-mana card seems good, you really want to utilize that hero power as much as possible. I mean, that's the whole goal of the deck, right? You built this deck for that hero power, so why not utilize it as much as possible? The one thing Ant's going to be careful, though, is we did see some unpowered Steam bots, I believe, unpowered Steam engine.
Yes, I think Steam bot.
I believe it's Steam bot as well. And you're really going to need Void Ripper against that card, because that card can just be one of the biggest pains to get through, especially when you have to soak so much damage into it, whereas one 3-mana card can answer it.
Until they slap an Inner Fire on it, and you're like, well, Void Ripper doesn't actually do anything here.
Void Ripper just kind of cries when he looks at it.
Ooh, Wild Pyromancer with the Northshire Cleric and Circle of Healing. Adding a Radiant Elemental into the fold. Oh, boy.
This is a pretty strong turn.
Oh, boy. 3 cards and killing off at least 4 minions from your opponent and sitting back.
He just, that just grunt on his face just showed that he knew what was coming.
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, actually, it's 5 cards, excuse me, because 2 minions survive. There's that Topsy-Turvy.
Oh, another powered shield pickup.
Yeah. And,
another Circle of Healing.
That might be too
That might
much.
be a little bit too much.
Yeah. Well, we can at least powered shield. It does weaken your own board, though, which is a little bit awkward. You can even Topsy-Turvy first, too, to destroy the minions, so you draw 1 less card. In fact, you can do it to boot. You flip the Corridor Creeper and then powered shield.
Yes.
And then you draw only 3 cards. Shaxi needs to do this a little bit quickly.
Yeah, because you can't fit in the Circle of Healing to draw those maximum cards. This was a very powerful turn.
Right, yeah.
It's great recognition from Shaxi's part.
You want to draw only 2 cards. You don't want to fill your hand too much. Radiant Elemental already done its job. Although you do want to keep it alive for Lyra. Yeah, 1 Radiant Elemental is still good enough.
I think Shaxi's kind of happy with sticking this Wild Pyromancer, especially with Ant not having a single answer. Yeah. And that's what we were going to earlier. You stick a Wild Pyromancer, and Odd Paladin just kind of sits there and tries to figure out some line of play, but then realizes there's not many lines of play.
Yeah, the way that the health was distributed too was perfectly controlled to just be outside the range of champions all attack. And now, what do you do with the Odd Paladin? Like, again, you don't even need your main win condition if you're the control deck against Odd Paladin. You can just simply dominate the board. Void Lords won the game for the Taiwan last game. And now, Wild Pyromancer chooses to be a threat. You don't even need your Mechathuns or your Lyras to close, or the Inner Fires to close out the game.
Yeah, it's looking really rough for Ant here. You see, he just has to commit the Void Ripper just to clear off that Northshire Cleric and get something on the board. This Pyromancer, as long as there's any spell, and we can see Shaxi has spells, Ant's just gonna be hoping, you know, maybe there's a slim hope there's just not spells in the hand, or that, you know, Shaxi goes for another line of play where it doesn't commit one of the spells. We can see there, I mean, not really too many other strong plays besides just going ahead and maybe Shadow Visions for something. There's also this taunt. I believe this is the Bronze Gatekeeper. Really unique card. I really like the magnetic effect because it gives versatility in play. It allows you to decide whether you want to play something as a standalone minion or you want to use it as that buff spell that can just, you know, either put more damage onto a charge minion, like for instance with War Gear, the 5-mana 5/5 with magnetic. A lot of times when I was playing a Zoo list, I would just stick a mech, I would give it 2 War Gears, and that would be lethal damage.
Yeah, War Gear is really powerful to push the issue, and then you saw, like, you know, things like upgradable frame bots or Mecharoo, and you get these 2/6, 2/10 taunts out very early. Just it completely forces the aggro to crumble early on. They have to trade it. So it's a very versatile card. Speaking of which, you know, he has good options this turn right now with Mass Dispel to shut down.
That's so strong here.
This looking like lights out unless Ant has a Divine Favor coming up soon, because, you know, his one hope for a comeback is that Shaxi maybe draws too many cards and refills the opponent's hand, and then Ant can go toe-to-toe for resources. But he's also used both of his Void Rippers like you're talking about, so if Shaxi sticks a big high health minion, I don't really know how Ant can get through it if he just Divine Spirits a single minion.
He really can. I mean, and another question is, could he even afford the room for the Divine Favor? That's just another question, is he has to fit a lot of these, like, newer cards. Could he afford to put the Divine Favor in this list, or did he say, you know what, it's not needed, we can just go ahead and tempo out and win this game through that method.
If you anticipate a lot of slower decks, then yes, Divine Favor is fantastic. But if you anticipate faster decks where your opponent also is playing minions very quickly from their hand and they don't have many resources, Divine Favor is very weak. So it's completely a metagame call. Oh, no.
That is not what Ant wanted to see.
Oh, this is looking like with each turn passing that the Asian countries and teams are going to be dominating the Western ones. You know, the East meets West. Europe and America are looking like they're going to fall in the first 2 series here, Dr. J.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate sight for all the proud Americans out there. But, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, maybe it's just the fault of Odd Paladin, right? Odd Paladin, you know.
They chose to play this again.
Exactly.
They could have played another deck, and I bet.
Especially knowing Priest was the last deck, or was one of the last decks.
Yeah, I mean, they had the opportunity to play Mage as well. So, you know, it's interesting that, you know, Taiwan chose to reveal the Priest. I know Team America, when they have people like Trump on it, he always thinks about advantages and edges that you can get outside the game. So in Trump's mind, he probably thought something like, oh, we don't have to reveal a deck. Odd Paladin's just a very solid deck overall. And if he's playing a combo Priest deck like Mechathune, we can just pressure him out of the game. So we should play Odd Paladin, keep our 3rd deck revealed, because we want to play the long game over the course of the group stages. Did that work out, though?
It's very difficult to say. No, it did not work out this time around.
Though? Oh, boy. If Ant can win from this position, he's the best Hearthstone player in the world.
You know what? I've still got faith in Ant. It's very slim, but I still have faith in my brethren. Don't you worry.
Is he just dead next turn because of 2nd War Gear?
I'm pretty sure he's just dead next turn. That's a lot of damage from the other side. Could even find the Inner Fire if need be.
Yeah, there's 13 plus the War Gear or just Divine Spirit's Inner Fire. Shaxi sitting forward, and he knows what time it is.
Oh, you know what's crazy? I completely forgot. Unpowered Steambot's a mech that can work with the synergies of the magnetic.
Exactly.
It's very intuitive deck building for Shaxi out there.
Perhaps this is the kind of mid-range Priest deck that a lot of people are talking about. Sure, it has combo finishers, but you also just have good mechs to just combine with each other for big tempo swings.
Can you just imagine putting a War Gear onto an unpowered Steambot?
Yeah,
on
a
curve?
5-14.
That's insane. That's insane.
Taiwan takes the series 2-1, and you know, Dr. J, part of the reason why I was really happy is for 2 reasons. One, again, Taiwan winning with unconventional decks, taking advantage of the fact that teams bring stuff that they expect to face. You know, people are expecting Zoo Warlock, expecting Odd Paladin, Malygos Druid, some of these more traditional decks that are doing well in the West. First of all, we don't really pay attention too much to what the East is doing. Very, very candidly speaking, a lot of English-speaking players, they don't really look to like Asia Pacific for a lot of deck lists. A few players do, but not a lot of them actually search for that. They just kind of ask within each other. So it ends up kind of being an echo chamber sometimes. Oh, Tempo, Battlecry, Shudderwalk Shaman is like the best deck. Oh, Malygos is the best deck, and everyone just kind of plays it and reaffirms that because they're just playing the same decks. But oftentimes, once in a while, the East comes out with these decks. Like for example, the Healing Zoo that we saw at the end of the expansion.
Yes, I believe that was Satellite, or it was one of the Asian players.
It didn't come from the Western country players, and it dominated the last parts of the expansion on ladder.
Very powerful.
Came out of nowhere. So, you know, I think because of that, Taiwan has an advantage. Maybe, you know, people were criticizing Priest, and this is my second point. I'll let you talk right after this. Is that people were saying Priest only has combo decks this expansion. They're like, oh, I only can play Inner Fire Divine Spirit decks. I can only play Mechathune decks, or I can play, you know, some kind of other weird cheesy deck that Priest can do. You know, where's my other non-combo Priest decks? Maybe that is it, like a mech shell that has the Divine Inner Spirit Fire. Divine Spirit Inner Fire finisher as a way to kind of play with what the game state develops as. It's interesting.
It's very reminiscent of like I believe we mentioned earlier, Miracle Rogue. You know, Miracle Rogue sometimes just wins because it has those mid-range threats, and you just constantly play like Faldori Strider, you get an Elven Minstrel out, you Vile Spine for tempo, and then you have those Cold Blood Leroy finishes. I mean, maybe this is just the new version of Priest where you have those War Gears, those mid-range minions, you stick it onto an unpowered Steambot, and then eventually you end the game with a Divine Spirit Inner Fire.
All right, well, you know, we have a saying in the Hearthstone Championship Tour whenever we cast it. This is not HCD, this is just kind of for exhibition and show, but we always say that APAC is whack, or APAC be whack.
APAC be whack.
They always bring wacky decks, and they never disappoint. And if you guys also want to get on this action, make sure to log in to get your free packs and legendary minion. Each class has a science that they abide by, for example, genetics and cloning with Priest, or, you know, the elements with Shaman, etc. check it out. Log in now to get your free legendary, and see if you can experiment with your own wacky decks. They're taking it over the Western try-hard decks that are just we know are tier 1 on our side of the world. Perhaps maybe Asia Pacific can show us a thing or two. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, more action here at the Boomsday Invitational. Stay tuned.